Cowardly killers are the worst kind of criminals. They prey on the innocent and weak, and they often get away with their crimes because they are too afraid to face the consequences. However, justice is slow but certain, and eventually, even the most cowardly killers will be brought to justice. 1. William Bonin. The majority of William Bonin's victims' remains were dumped along various motorways in Southern California, earning him the nickname the Motorway Killer, after having been found guilty of 14 murders and receiving a death injection. Up to 36 male victims may have died at the hands of Bonin, according to suspicions. If the cops weren't already watching him, his arrest most likely wouldn't have taken place.
On the 2nd of June, whilst the LAPD began to organize a 24-hour surveillance operation on William Bonin, their new prime suspect for the freeway killer, Bonin and James Monroe had picked up another young man.
The LAPD started planning a 24-hour surveillance operation on William Bonin, its new top suspect in the Motorway Killer case, on June 2nd. Another young man had been taken up by Bonin and James Monroe. Officers followed Bonin on June 11, 1980, after they saw him picking up a teenager. Police were able to enter Bonin's van after hearing unsettling noises coming from it, where they discovered him assaulting the teen. With a wealth of information gleaned from the car, Bonin later admitted to committing a total of 21 killings. On the condition that his confessions could not be used against him, he would divulge details about his numerous victims to them. 2. Robert Black. This Scottish serial killer terrorized the UK by kidnapping and killing young women, whose bodies typically surfaced days later.
Claiming the lives of 4 girls, multiple police units across the UK mounted an exhaustive nationwide manhunt for Black. But his arrest was only made possible due to the keen observation of one David Herkus. Herkus was mowing his lawn when he observed his neighbor's daughter being kidnapped by Black. The police were called to the scene, and they stopped Black's van and arrested him on the spot.
Police forces around the country began to pool their resources. Before long, he became the prime suspect in a series of unsolved child murders that had spanned over a decade.
He managed to avoid capture for more than 10 years, contributing to the loss of childhood significance for an entire generation of kids. Multiple police departments in the UK launched a thorough national manhunt for Black after he killed 4 girls. But his capture was only made possible because of one David Herkus's astute observation. Herkus saw his neighbor's daughter being abducted by Black as he was mowing his lawn. When the police arrived on the scene, they immediately halted Black's van and took him into custody. All around the nation, police units started to reduce their staffing. Soon after, he was notified as the main suspect in a string of unsolved child deaths that had occurred over 10 years. The girl who was kidnapped turned out to be the daughter of one of the officers who had responded. 3. Carl Eugene Watts.
Admitted murderer of 13 women could soon see the light of day.
Carl Eugene Watts, the confessed murderer of 13 women, might soon come to light. American serial killer Carl Eugene Watts was able to go unnoticed for over 8 years. The majority of his competitors did not use Watts' methods. He committed his atrocities in various states, but no conclusive DNA was ever found. The reign of terror of Watt, who may have claimed over 100 victims, ended on May 23, 1982. He broke into Lori Lister and Melinda Aguilar's Houston flat that day and attempted to strangle both women to death.
I knew that he was there to hurt or kill.
Aguilar managed to flee the flat by pretending to be unconscious before calling for assistance. Watts had fled from the scene, but he was later caught by the authorities and linked to his other crimes.
I'm directing my prosecutors to swear out a warrant this afternoon charging Carl Eugene Watts with premeditated first-degree murder for the brutal killing of Helen Mae Dutcher.
4. Adam Leroy Line. He was a long-haul trucker who had broken into our home. Adam Leroy Lane, who went by the moniker of Lane, was a North Carolina resident who ran circuits up and down from Nashua, New Hampshire. Adam Leroy Lane, a truck driver, gained the moniker Highway Killer because he committed his crimes right next to the highway. After killing 2 women with knives and narrowly missing another, Lane committed his final crime on July 30th, 2007, when he broke into a Massachusetts home. The family's daughter was attacked while she was sleeping.
The man that had broken into our house was a long-haul trucker. His name was Adam Leroy Lane.
She said, "I'll check on her." And I said, "No, I'll check on her," which really isn't the norm. Usually I'm selfish and want to get all the sleep I need. But that morning, something told me to get up. I got up and my wife Jeannie followed me in there.
And her hushed cries were loud enough to awaken her parents in their chamber. The couple then wrestled with Lane and were able to overpower him, even though they sustained a few knife cuts in the process. Lane was arrested by police and subsequently connected to his previous crimes through DNA. 5. Robert Rhodes. As a result of his position, Robert Rhodes routinely targeted truck stop sex workers and hitchhikers. Rhodes had handcuffed Kathleen Vine and picked her up the day before he was apprehended. The truck was parked on the side of the road with its hazard lights on, and when a highway police officer arrived there, she was crying for help. Rhodes was promptly detained and accused of assaulting and holding Vine without his will. He is now receiving a life sentence without the possibility of release after being later connected to other murders in many states. Robert Rhodes was a target of a kidnapping and murder investigation by the FBI. They revisited the evidence from the search of Rhodes' apartment and found more photos of Regina. 6. Jeffrey Dahmer. On the evening of July 22, 1991, a guy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin flagged down a police car while clutching one wrist in fear. Tracy Edwards then led the policeman back to the residence of Jeffrey Dahmer, the person who had put him in custody. Dahmer, who had already murdered 17 people by that point that evening, had earlier posed as a picture shooter and enticed Edwards back to his flat.
It's like I told the policeman that this freak, this crazy guy, was trying to hurt me.
Edwards recognized that Dahmer was about to kill him and seized the chance to flee. Police searched Dahmer's flat and discovered abundant proof of his crimes. As a result, they arrested him right away.
It's case number F91254-2, State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer.
No lawyer has a right to make judgments concerning another person's due process rights. Not only has society learned that there are people out there who have these disorders, but also lawyers in the future will know what problems there are when and if they're confronted with the same kind of situation as was confronted in this case.
Authorities also took out a barrel of what they think is acid. Police are reluctant to reveal exactly how many victims there might be, but knowledgeable investigators say it could be more than half a dozen.